This week, a new Tarkov TV session was announced to be coming very soon, which should give us some insight into what BSG has planned for the summer wipe and beyond. Since the start of 2023, we've had detailed roadmaps on what was coming and approximations of timing. Even if not everything was completely in line with expectation, this gave us a good idea of what to look forward to in the near future. But in 2024, we've been running off-piste so far. I expect that we will be seeing a new roadmap coming shortly after Tarkov TV, as per Pestely's interview with Nikita about a month ago, but until then, there are a few things that we should be watching out for in this broadcast. The first one is the graphics overhaul. Nikita has talked about this graphics overhaul for quite a while, and in his Pestely interview, it was mentioned to be coming before the release of the game, which is what they're working on most actively at the moment. So this is a contender for the next wipe, if not the wipe after, and hopefully will feature on the roadmap itself. Although we have seen some massive lighting improvements recently through the reduction of the fog, this can still be improved further, and if I remember correctly, Nikita mentioned at one stage that the game looked quite different with the overhaul, so we're just going to have to see. Along with the graphics, we have seen a screenshot of map-to-map travel, which has been in the works for a long time. To be honest, I'm quite surprised that we haven't seen the link into at least labs before now from Streets and Factory, but it looks like all of that stuff is going to come at some point in the next year. What has been posted so far though asks more questions than it answers, with a car already on Streets showing 3 options being either extract, transit to Streets of Tarkov, or send loot to stash. We probably can't read too much in the work in progress screenshot, but how this functions overall is going to be very dependent on how these systems work together. Will the hideout be in one specific location, such as customs, or will it be between every map? Will it only be accessible after leaving certain exits, and other extracts will only allow you to visit a different map? Time will tell, and there are lots of different ways that this could be implemented. Map-to-map travel could end up being a really cool feature, but I'm a little bit apprehensive that it might result in a more annoying game. For example, linking up with other people or friends if you're not in the same map and you have to spend 30 minutes traveling to each other first before you can play raids together, that kind of thing. A few ideas that I've heard so far from the community are, for example, if the regular map system still existed for just general casual raids, but if map-to-map travel worked for special events or quests or getting secret locations, something of that nature to get the best of both. For example, increasing a boss spawn rate by transiting in from a different location without going back to stash. Maybe it's a one-time quest or something. Another idea is that moving to a different map could insert you into an ongoing raid, much like playing as a scav, which would probably require longer raid timers and something to be done about loot spawns. This one is maybe too much of an overhaul, but time will tell. Speaking of maps, we saw a poll recently as well about which map the player base would like to be improved: Customs expansion, Lighthouse expansion, or a full factory redesign. The most popular choice ended up being a Lighthouse expansion, and I think this is because it is the map that people believe works the least well out of all of them. Customs is already pretty decent, and Factory is fine for what it is, so Lighthouse is really the priority in terms of fixing the way that map plays out, both in terms of flow and in terms of spawns. It's also the map where AI probably matters the most with the road camp, and unfortunately because of this, Lighthouse ends up being the most artificial map in a sense because of the additions of mines and claymores as well up on top of the mountains. You really have to study the Lighthouse route to killing rogues if you want any chance of doing it, and an ordinary player is very unlikely to be able to organically go there and clear it out without knowing exactly what to do based on a guide. It all feels very forced. There is also very likely to be a new trader soon called Ref that we have seen teased, who is the trader based around Arena. You can expect him to give out things like daily tasks in Arena itself and be important in linking your main Tarkov account to the Arena account, which itself could come relatively soon. This link up between the games was supposed to be in a slightly earlier update in mid-spring on the Arena roadmap, and this got pushed back a little bit, so hopefully it will be in the next one. Once the accounts are linked together, people will have more incentive to go and play Arena even in just a casual setting, and I will say that the last hero mode is actually pretty good if you just want to improve your gun skills and keep on top of practicing in PvP. When playing post-link up, you'll actually be able to add endurance and strength to your main PMC character from your Arena character, which is good for ordinary players that typically don't get past levels 20 or 30 of endurance and strength in a wipe. Another trader tease that we've seen is the wireframe models for Prapor and Mechanics Workshop. This is a hint towards in-raid traders that, to be honest, I didn't really think were coming, so it remains to be seen when that's going to be added and what effect that will have on the game. Will you be able to buy from Prapor always in your stash, or do you have to go and visit him in a specific location? Again, more questions being asked here than really answered by these teasers. There's been some more chat about PMC Karma, and based on what has been said so far, at least for me, this has gone from being extremely concerning down to not really worrying me at all. Again, as per the Pestily conversation, it sounded like PMC Karma was going to be some kind of hidden characteristic that wasn't going to have an overt effect on the game, but there would be a new boss added to hunt players with low karma who were, for example, extract camping. So long as this system just adds a little bit of flavour around the core mechanics and doesn't do something like lock you out of trading with Peacekeeper because you're killing USECs as a USEC, then I think it might actually be okay. But if the system is any more intense than that, we would certainly need more tools in order to communicate together and make it work, like radios and pre-raid plans with members of your faction that aren't in the same party. For the record, I don't think the game needs this and would be too much of a departure from what we have now, i.e. no karma for PMCs. We could also see something about the prestige system, although when this was mentioned, it did sound like this was coming with the 1.0 version of the game because it was discussed separately to the graphics overhaul, which itself is supposedly coming prior to release. Though we might not see this for a little bit, as I think it's unlikely that we'll be able to escape from Tarkov and complete the game prior to 1.0. One of the staple additions to each wipe is new weapons. So far, we have only seen one, which is the M60 belt-fed 7.62 NATO machine gun, and outside of this, we don't really know what else is coming, but you can be sure that there's likely 2 or 3 other weapons that will be mentioned in Tarkov TV that we should be looking out for. There are a few interesting features on the old roadmaps that we are still yet to see in-game, and would be welcome with these upcoming updates. The first one being bipods and bracing. The M60 would be a really good place to start here because, as you can see in the screenshots, this has a bipod already. Being able to use these weapons on the ground in a stable way to provide fire support and also mantle on window frames and other map elements would be very cool. This probably piggybacks off the work that they've done for the vaulting system to parameterize the edges and stuff like that, so hopefully we will see this soon. There's a handful of guns specifically with bipods already in the game, like the Long G36, the DVL, the SV98 and the RPD, just to name a few. Another one that did appear on one of the early roadmaps was suppressor durability. I personally would love to see this and think that durability should be more of a factor across more of the parts, not just on the base of the weapon. This could also help with balance as well, because then it would make suppressors more of a commodity and less of a fixed attachment, and add some extra richness to both the modding and trading system in these parts. This was originally planned to come with a rework of subsonic ammunition, presumably making it silent and changing the audio profile of different types of ammunition, so who knows, maybe that will come with this too. Sight brightness adjustments have been mentioned in the past as well, which would also be awesome to see in the game. On more of the inventory side of things, I'm hoping that we see the pinning of cases turning up in the game at some point, because that quality of life feature has been asked for a very long time and would go a long way to help players manage their stash better, which we all spend too much time doing, let's be honest. But outside of this, the biggest quality of life change that Tarkov could make is allowing players to use their stash, the flea market and the traders while they're waiting in queue for a particular raid by locking the PMC off and allowing you to carry on organizing your stash and selling these items in tandem with searching for a game. It is seemingly difficult for BSG to improve the matching time any further than what we have now, and some people's PCs just aren't up to scratch, so you can be waiting upwards of 2 to 3 minutes for other players to simply load into the game on intensive maps like Lighthouse and Streets. This was specifically noted as planned on Twitter, but to be honest, I don't really expect this to come anytime soon, if at all, but I really would like to see it as a #1 priority. One of the biggest things that puts players off Tarkov is just having to sit there with nothing to do other than Alt-Tab while the game is loading in that can take anywhere from 4 to 7 minutes to get in sometimes. Finally, with the find in raid removal test on the flea market continuing on, I would love to see this through to the next wipe, but with a new addition that prevents players from flipping items from the traders right back onto the flea market to prevent the destruction of the early wipe process. This isn't an issue right now because we're in late game Tarkov, but I've done a whole video about this topic if you want to go and check that out, which details my ideas in full. As of making this video, it's not entirely certain when Tarkov TV will actually be. If there's an update to that, I'll put it in the description and the pinned comment. Nikita said this week, but we're not really sure. If you've never seen a Tarkov TV before, you just have to go to the Battlestate Games account on Twitch to watch it live or after it's finished. They usually take quite a while, like 2 hours or so, which is why I advise those who are pressed for time but still want to see it directly to wait until afterwards and watch it on 1.5 or 2 times speed. This also allows you to skip through the breaks as well, but do bear in mind that you might miss out on some in-game items because usually there are some codes to redeem to get you free stuff, if you care about that this late in. So if you've not watched it yet, go and check out my latest Find in Raid video to make the market awesome for next wipe. Otherwise, as usual, a big shout out to all my patrons, and as always, have fun in your raids.